We've got a beautiful October morning going here, and I'm excited to share with you today some of the plant varieties we've got growing in this water feature area. Now, this is one of my favorite locations in all of the landscaping that I've done on this property. If you're interested in the backstory, how this came together, I did an in-studio video talking about why we put this in. So make sure to check description. Now, it's been about 5 or 6 years since this was put in, and so we've already lost or had to remove some of the different plants. We'll maybe mention some of those, but we're going to primarily focus on the plants that are doing well. We're going to go ahead, let's get started at this little vein over here that I put in. And one of the reasons that I did this, I had to deal with drainage. As we get heavy rains, that water has to exhaust somewhere, and it comes down into this patio area here. And I actually had to figure out how to get the water pushed out of here. I couldn't go this way because the elevation was too high and there's a lot of utilities there. So what I ended up doing, I actually dug out that area under those large paver blocks. So the water comes around the pond, drains over, and if you follow the exterior, all that water drains out through here, and then eventually it just exhausts over into this area. So that gives you kind of a brief introduction why I put that in. So we're going to get started on the plants in this vein, and then we'll work our way over to the water feature area. This is gold tide forsythia. Now, I really like forsythia, one of the first plants to show color in the spring. They're going to have yellow flowers before they leaf out. If you take a look here, I did quite a bit of pruning on this earlier this year and surprised how much growth has come out of this. But that's what can happen on a shrub. To get older, more established, they're going to be able to punch out that growth even after a hard pruning. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is we're going to take out this Bobo hydrangea. Let's talk about that next. The Bobo hydrangea, great little smaller panicle hydrangea if you don't have the space or you want to keep something in that 3-foot range. And if you like larger hydrangeas, go for Limelight. That's an excellent one for some size. You just can't beat the flowers on it. Look at that thing. But back to Bobo. So Bobo, it transitions from that white into a pink. But it's just getting too crowded for me, so most likely I'll probably dig this out at some point within the next year or two and just transplant it into a location where it's got a little bit more room, and we'll likely just put a smaller perennial in this location. And then we've got the option that we can bring that edging out further to make that forsythia fit in there just a little bit better. And if you get a prolonged fall, the gold tide also offers up some nice purple hues for fall color. And right next to us here, we've got an American larch. Now, I like the larch. They're a deciduous evergreen. They're going to drop their needles in the winter, but they get a beautiful yellow fall color. This can become a pretty good sized tree. So over time, I'll definitely be lifting up these lower branches as the shrubs below get a little bit bigger, and it can just start cascading over all the other surrounding plants. And next over here, we've got a nice little hawthorn. This is the thornless cockspur hawthorn. A lot of different excellent characteristics on this tree. Throughout the season, it just changes from the early white flower color, the early stages of the fruits developing, and then as we move into late summer and fall, we get to enjoy the showy red fruits. Definitely my favorite part of the tree, and they're persistent, hanging on the tree through the winter, providing food for birds and other wildlife. And an added bonus, look at these showy fall colors. One of the downsides to the hawthorns, they do have continuing suckers. This is another tree I found in a different landscape right here. Look at that. Yeah, it almost looks shrubby, and if you don't keep those cut back, yeah, that's what's going to happen. They're going to turn into a shrub. I'm betting that this is grafted onto a hawthorn that does get a thorn. So if you let that go too long, you're going to get some of those spikes that the hawthorn have. But this is a thornless variety. Now the flowers, even though they're beautiful, they don't have the greatest of scent. It actually kind of a putrid odor. Only a tree that I can really say that I don't like the smell of the flower. And right below our hawthorn here, we've got Big Tuna Mugo pine. Yeah, I love the name Big Tuna. I'm just keeping this sheared into kind of a sculptured, smaller pyramid. So far, it's getting enough sun. This is south. So as long as we keep these branches pruned up, and that's most likely what we'll do, I'll just kind of keep lifting up these branches as that tree gets a little bit bigger size. Gives this Mugo pine just a little bit more room to breathe in there. I did a video a while back where we talked about whether you should prune Mugo pines. This was one of them that showed up in that video. And let's go ahead right back here. Let's take a look at just a few perennials we've got growing here. Let's come in from the other side, give you a little bit more bright color there. Olympus garden phlox, which has a nice variegated leaf with those light purple flowers. And here's the yellow sundrops primrose. This is an upright variety of primrose. It has frequent, short-lived yellow flowers during midsummer. Here's a nice sedum in the Rock and Grow collection, Coral Jade. Just beyond that big Tuna Mugo pine, there we've got Sunjoy Gold Pillar Barberry, which definitely has its brightest golden yellow in the earlier part of the season. Now this has lost a lot of its yellow color, but that's what it's grown for, that yellow accent. I've got a few of them throughout the yard. I just love that yellow contrast, how it draws the eye. And this one just stands out next to these gray trap boulders that are behind me. Isn't that just beautiful? I like the barberries. They are invasive in a lot of different areas, so you may or may not find some of the different varieties. There's a lot of different barberry varieties to pick from with different leaf colors, whether it be the light purple, dark purple, or almost orange and fall colors to boot. Yeah, wow, look at this one on an emerald carousel barberry. This is a green leaf variety during the main part of the growing season, but man, isn't that something? Beautiful fall color. And here I've got something growing in this rustic metal container. This is actually one of the fall cypress plants. And I got to tell you, I am surprised how well this is done. This is in the original container now. You know, I bet it's going to be that 5 or 6 years. And I overwinter it artificially. I've got a whole process where I take some of the different unique conifers that I like growing and creating just that different accent. I've got a blue weeping cedar that used to look great. That one actually died out. It did get a little bit too root bound. Here's one of the spiral junipers that I love to grow. And then behind us here, look at that striking blue Colorado spruce. I'm going to keep that sheared, and I'm going to try to keep it as small as I can. I don't want it to get a whole lot bigger than that just because I won't be able to reach it from the ladder. And right in front of our Colorado spruce, this is a favorite sedum of mine. Sedum are also called stone crop. This is Autumn Joy sedum. Wonderful pink flowers all through fall. A great late food source for the honeybees. I like to leave the tops on until spring, as I think the flower heads that turn brown provide some nice winter interest. And one of my favorite smaller globe arborvitaes, the Danica arborvitae. I really like this arrangement of plants we've got growing here. So yeah, the Danica arborvitae, one of the smaller ones, staying around that 2-foot level. Hetzmidget's one that also stays quite small, gets a little bit bigger. And then the back there, you can see the Gold Coast juniper kind of creeping along, finding the sun where it needs to go. So that's doing just wonderful there too. It's got a brighter yellow color in the spring, and then it kind of fades to a bluish green. And then right here, this is a really nice perennial too, the Dakota Burgundy Penstemon, or Beard's Tongue. Beautiful purple foliage. Look at that flower in the spring. Just an excellent plant, doing wonderful in this location. And in quite a few of the different areas surrounding here, I've got this little low-growing sedum. This comes up everywhere, self-seeding, naturalizing, but a beautiful yellow spring color. The bees love it, and it's just such a great little plant. So even though it's super showy in the spring, I happen to like the fall spent flowers. I think it's really showy, so I never cut them off. I just let them flake off on their own. And just past our penstemon, this is a nice little perennial too, Prairie Smoke. Look at the flower on that thing in the spring. Nice little plant. Just an excellent little early blooming native perennial for our area. And back where we've got lemon queen globeflower with that yellow flower. We also grow golden queen globeflower that has more of an orange flower. Getting some repeat bloom on that, that usually is more of a spring bloomer, but we've had some excellent late warm weather, so we're seeing quite a few different perennials start to flower again. And let's quick talk about why that stump is there. Initially, I had planted a weeping white spruce, one of my favorite upright pyramidal spruce trees. Put it in here, was doing great, and I wanted it to kind of project through this arbor. Not sure why I put this Colorado spruce so close. I think my initial intention, I was just going to kind of keep it sheared shorter to get that striking blue contrast. But the weeping white, it just seemed like every year it got worse and worse. It would bud out, start looking pretty good, and then just needle cast would happen. And finally one fall, there was virtually no live growth left. So I thought there's no way it's going to make it through the winter. So we took it out, and I don't know, I think it's probably a good thing, because now we've been able to keep this at a size that fits in here. So you never know what can happen. Sometimes you just got to take things out when they fail. That's all part of landscaping and gardening. Back up just a little bit here and we're going to take a look next at the Royal Frost birch. What a beautiful birch tree. A little bit of a history on this one as well. It died back completely. This was originally planted. It only had 3 of those stems you see there. But to my surprise, it came back gangbuster. This is all the next season growth in 2022. And then when the next season rolled around, I decided to get this back into tree form. So I got after those lower branches to expose the main trunks. So rather than a clump birch with 3 main trunks, we now have 9. I still have a few years to decide if I want to eliminate several of those before they get too big, but for now, I'm leaving it and I'd rather like the look. Here's a closer look at that beautiful purple foliage on the Royal Frost and a shot of the early stage of the catkins. They eventually turn brown and are great for winter interest. I suspect more people are familiar with the paper birch that has a bright white color, but the Royal Frost has a cinnamon brown coloring. And then last but not least, the fall colors. Wow, very showy. And then down here we've got a Virginia. That's a nice perennial. Has basically a semi-evergreen foliage. I never cut that back. You just leave it. Beautiful flower. And then back here you can see we've got a little bit of a congestion point. That's a winged euonymus or burning bush. And that actually started out as a little tree form and it died back. And I've been cutting it back every year. And eventually it might look like it fits in there, especially when I get after pruning up these branches. Okay, let's swing over here. We'll take a look at our next group of plants we've got growing here. This used to be a blue arrow juniper, and I transplanted that out of there and we've put in this smaller peony. Peonies are a nice early spring blooming plant. That's another sedum there with a variegated foliage. We covered that in that sedum video as well. But here, let's go ahead and talk a little bit further about the Prairie Torch Buckeye. Now originally, I tried to establish 2 of the weeping Norway spruce in that location. I wanted to get that nice arching, draping over effect that would have intermingled with where the water comes out. But after losing 2 of them, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go with something else. And so we found this Prairie Torch Buckeye. Now one of the drawbacks to putting this tree here, a lot of leaves, and the leaves can get in the water, they can get in the skimmer box, and you got to be careful because especially this time of year, you'll clog up your catch basket and you can burn out your pumps. The water flow won't be enough. So we have to be real careful, but otherwise this is just a beautiful tree. Check it out in the spring here. When they first start leafing out, I don't know, they're just interesting to look at those buds as those leaves develop. And then not long after that, when it's fully leafed out, look at these flowers on the Buckeye. Beautiful, beautiful plant. Look at that long, spiky white. And then we're going to transition into the Buckeyes, where it gets its name. That's got that husk with the little spines on it. But if you don't want squirrels in your area, then you might want to avoid planting the Buckeye. The squirrel has basically cleaned up every Buckeye on this tree. And then right down here, we've got a valley cushion Mugo pine. That's been trained on a tree, possibly grafted. You know, they can put on a little bit of size. That's eventually probably going to get about, oh, I don't know, 3 feet by 3 feet. Here's one. Not sure if this is a valley cushion, but that's the same effect I'm looking for. I guess the idea is I wanted to create just a kind of a nice little interesting smaller conifer under the canopy of this Buckeye as that continues to grow. And as I mentioned, one of the reasons we just love this area, it's the water. Anytime you have that water in the landscape, that sound. And it provides water for the birds. We get a lot of bees that come in here. And we'll just quick follow that water vein over here where it drops down. And it's meeting up with the water that's coming out of our pillars, if you see that up here. So let's go ahead and let's backtrack to this nice ceramic red planter that we've got here. My wife takes care of all the annual planters in our yard, and you can see here some of the different variations we've had in there. Purple fountain grass, different combinations of petunia, different flowering annuals. But this year we went with hibiscus, and we really liked it. We had never really grown hibiscus before, but I can't believe how many flowers you get out of a hibiscus. The flowers don't last very long, but there's always new ones that are coming throughout the season. So just a great choice for this planter here. And then we've got the vinca vine, and next plant up here we've got a prairie dropseed grass. This is one of the smaller ornamental grasses, but a nice feathery plume. It's said to have a scent like popcorn. The ornamental grasses, they're mainly grown for their showy fall plume, but I also really like the movement they create in our gardens. The drop seed stays around 18 to 24 inches tall, but easily reaches 36 inches with those fall plumes. And check out this mass planting I came across recently. I thought this was really cool. I'm sure glad I'm not the guy stuck cutting them all back, though. Whoa, there's a job. And here's a couple Technito arborvitaes. I planted these two close together on purpose, as I wanted them to blend together. I've yet to do any shearing on these, as they naturally have a nice, tight, compact growth habit. They're starting to crowd out our pathway just a little bit now, so we'll see what happens. You'll notice here too, we've got one more prairie dropseed intermingling with the pathway. This is an amber gold arborvitae. Here again, I love the yellow contrast that we get off that rusted iron. And we had a little bit of a scare on this one this spring. We had some of the main canes in there died out, but we were able to take those out and use some twine to pull that together. I've got a video on that as well where we showed you that process. So it's coming back nicely. We're still getting a little bit of more shed in here than I'd like, but I think I'm on the borderline hardiness with this arborvitae, but so far doing good now for about 4 to 5 years. This is one of the Asiatic lilies here. This is beautiful in the spring, but now, you know, it doesn't look like anything. But here we've got a wisteria. There aren't many wisterias in our area that are hardy. That one's kind of folded over right now, but my intention, I'm probably going to hang some kind of chain from this arbor. Let us start climbing up that, and we're hopeful that we can get that wisteria going. And a quick history on this metal pergola over our water feature. We had this custom made, and there was a bit of a miscommunication, as I was thinking it was going to be fabricated in 3 separate 10 by 10 foot sections. I had planned on staggering each section throughout the water feature at slightly different elevation, but the brackets were all welded as one unit, so I rolled with the punches, got it assembled, and boy, I'm happy with how this turned out. I just can't believe how it changed the whole effect of this area. Adding that height, the rusted metal color contrast, the shadows, and the frames that it creates in the landscape as you walk by. And since birds love water, this creates an added area of interest for us watching the birds that like to perch on those upper beams. And speaking of birds, I hung this 48-inch metal sculpture here, initially because I just liked how it looked. Turns out the smaller finch, the sparrows, they just absolutely love this for perching. The large bowl you see here was actually being sold as a fire pit, but I like the looks of it as a garden art piece. We used it for water plants one season, but we struggled keeping them to stand up. So next season, I've decided to fill it with soil, plant some heat-loving plants, perhaps cannas. Always fun to try new things, change things up. So even though we don't have quite as much color right now, boy, mid-July, just a beautiful area when the flowers are blooming. And it won't be long, we'll have another color to contrast off that iron rusted arbor, the white snow. It's coming. That's all I've got for now. Thanks for stopping by Garden Hike. I appreciate it. We'll see you again next video.